Hello, everyone. Welcome to America Back to God with Heerak podcast for April 20th, 2022. We have a special guest today, and his name is Mr. Bill Moher, and he lives in Arlington, Virginia. So welcome, Bill.
Very, very pleased to be with you, Heerak.
Definitely. We are very happy to have you here.
Fantastic.
Can you introduce yourself, please, to
Sure.
everyone?
Sure. As Heerak mentioned, I'm an entrepreneur. I've been working with technology since I graduated from Carnegie Mellon University in 1997. I joined a very small startup founded by some other folks that were Carnegie Mellon graduates, one of whom I worked with at the Pittsburgh Supercomputing Center while I was in school.
Wow.
And my history is that I'm a software developer by training, but really an expert in all systems. And
That's
so,
great.
like you, Heerak, I have a little bit of a ancillary medical background. I worked with the Biomedical Supercomputing Initiative at the Pittsburgh Supercomputing Center, and
Wow.
I did early work in what later the field became known as bioinformatics. And so it was working with using software to understand how our DNA makes us, contributes at least to making us who we are. And was very thrilled to do that work. And and as I left school and joined the .com world, helping build lots and lots of different .com companies, building a lot of wealth for a lot of people in that version of the gold rush that happened in the late 90s and early 2000s. I spent about 20 years helping people, largely rich people get richer, and with coding and know-how and smarts, which is my forte.
Right.
But when I looked for my second act, I really wanted to be involved in biotech and also in helping very small startups. And so I joined American Gene Technologies, which is they're a cell and gene therapy company. So they have a set of patents that covers a lot of the ways that you can use viruses to update the human body. And so it's they take something that is historically thought of as a bad thing. Most viruses are bad. They cause problems for those whom they infect. But what the beauty of what AGT does is they can scoop out the bad stuff from a virus and then put in good stuff in that virus, and then use that virus as a software update for the human body.
Wow.
And so I'm really excited to be able to help them, and I've been helping them, giving them some advice on technology, but also helping them raise money. And so I don't know if any of your listeners are interested in helping the world, but
many are.
Venture philanthropy is what it's called. And I'd be happy to you can maybe in a link for your podcast, you can give them my email address and they can reach out to me directly if they're interested in investing.
Yeah, you could actually give out your email address now if you want to.
Okay, perfect. It's my email address is very simple. It's my name, Bill Moher @gmail.com. And so reach out to
your
me.
Name?
Yep. BILLMOHER
Great.
@gmail.com.
And so, please reach out to him if you're interested in a venture philanthropy, or if you want to make a lot of money.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am, I can tell you a little bit. I can tell you a little bit about AGT's three different drug candidates. They're
Okay.
I know that your audience is a godly audience, and so
Hmm.
I want to start out by saying the first and most exciting thing that that AGT is working on is a not a treatment for,
Hmm.
but a functional cure for the HIV virus.
Right.
And I know, I know for a long time, many in the religious community thought that that HIV was God's punishment for bad behavior, whether it was uh, sexual identity choices or intravenous drug use, for instance. But I can tell you that I'm certain that that's not true. I know that if that were true, then somebody like Ryan White would not have died of AIDS. A hemophiliac, a child who was stricken down in the 80s, as you might remember.
Right. You could get
Um,
HIV through blood transfusions too, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
everyone,
Mm,
you and I and anyone is at risk of HIV.
right.
And
Yeah.
so for your community, I can assure you that if anyone is pulling the strings on HIV, it is certainly not God, but it is his fallen angel. And the AGT has been working on the HIV functional cure for the last 13 years,
Well, that's great. Wow,
and
that's a
they
long time.
they I joined AGT before they they were approved by the FDA to go into a clinical trial, and so
Oh, wow.
I
It's a clinical trial.
invested three or more years ago now,
Wow,
uh,
great.
and they about not quite 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago now, they gained authorization from the FDA to go into a phase 1 clinical trial.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And so, if just so your audience knows, I know you and I, but there have only been 3 people in the world who have been cured of HIV.
Hmm.
Two of them were patients who developed leukemia. You
Hmm.
know, with today's antiretroviral treatments for HIV,
Hmm.
no one is likely to die of AIDS uh, who is well controlled and under those treatments. But because that treatment is a chemotherapeutic pill, the the reality of their situation is that uh, they're likely their immune systems are compromised, and they're likely to develop cancer and die
Hmm.
of cancer. And so 2 people in the world uh, had uh, developed leukemia, and through developing leukemia they got a bone marrow transplant. And when you get a bone marrow transplant, I don't know if everyone knows this, but it can change your blood type. And so these people drew the lucky lottery straw, where they were a match for somebody who had a blood type that is uninfectable by
Hmm.
HIV. And so their cancer treatment cured them of HIV.
Hmm.
No, it wasn't an intended consequence, but it was a wonderful consequence for them. And that whole process sort of lit up the idea in the the scientist who invented viral vector technology. And he realized that perhaps they could use a virus to do the same thing, and modify somebody's immune system such that they would uh, not only not be infectable by the HIV virus, but they would be able to kill it. And it's a, it's it is it's God's work, honestly, what they're doing. And there have been 6 people now who've been through the clinical trial.
Oh, great.
And that sounds like an absolutely small number, because you hear about clinical trials for pharmaceutical companies being in the thousands of people.
Mm-hmm.
But the beauty of cell and gene therapy is that as an exercise in pharmaceutical treatments, it's very, very specific,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very targeted. So it's not like an oral pill
Mm-hmm.
that gets into your bloodstream and can mess up all sorts of other things.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very, very, very laser focused treatment. And so the beauty of this HIV trial is that I hope, the FDA we've cleared another hurdle, which is the FDA allowed us to infuse these people with this cell and gene therapy treatment to change
Wow.
help change their immune system.
Mm-hmm.
And we gave them T cells that are uninfectable by HIV and able to seek out and destroy the virus wherever they find it. And the beauty is that the FDA just allowed us to allow those patients to stop their treatment, and that will answer the question, not just did it work for this patient who had an already very low viral load,
Mm-hmm.
but did it work well enough to actually functionally cure the patient? And
Right.
so, I hope that number goes from
Mm-hmm.
3 to 9 very soon.
Right.
And
So yeah.
so it's been a great journey with AGT. They have
Nice.
two other very nice treatments, just to paint the full picture. One of them is
Uh-huh.
a monogenic disease, and so that means in your DNA sequence you have one spelling error. So where you should have an A, T, C, or G, you get something else. And this, for any of your listeners who have
Mm-hmm.
children, they test for this in the first pediatric visit. You might remember
Mm-hmm.
that if you're a parent, they take a pin and they touch the bottom of your baby's foot, and they're
Mm-hmm.
testing for this condition called PKU,
Mm-hmm.
phenylketonuria. And
Mm-hmm.
the company AGT has a treatment for that, and that today is people who have PKU are very infirm. They require it's a progressively degenerative disease, and so the kids might be able to walk as children, but they
Mm-hmm.
soon lose that ability, and they become bedridden and require constant care. And so what it winds up doing is it winds up resulting in death by the age of 18, either through through doctor assisted suicide, through patient
Mm-hmm.
suicide, or through complications of their degenerative condition. And the treatment that AGT developed is a one and done.
Mm.
It's an infusion, so it's
Right.
in the same way that you get IV antibiotics or that you get IV chemotherapy, you
Right.
go and you get an infusion, and you're then able to produce the protein that your body can't produce because of that one spelling mistake.
Right. I remember,
And
when I was at Georgetown University, I did my Master of Science in Clinical Nurse Leader at Georgetown. I was kind of active on campus. I was the vice president of Georgetown graduate student government, grad gov for 1 year, which is the full length of the term. And there are 9,000 graduate students, and all the schools are involved: medical school, nursing school. Nursing school is where I was, and then a school of foreign service, McCourt School of Public Policy, and business school. And at the business school, there is an organization that is very active even now, called Net Impact. And
Yes.
so you probably heard of it, right?
Yes.
It's pretty
Yeah.
famous in this area. And it kind of brings together mostly MBA students who want to create like healthcare related or other kind of companies that benefit society while making lots of money. So
Right.
there are also students who have who do MBA, but they're part of venture capitalist companies, and some
Yes.
students come from healthcare, some students come from IT, some have no experience, but they're like mostly MBA students. And I was very excited to be part of that for 2 years and see what kind of companies are out there. And your company, I'm sure, is something that they are probably very excited about. Um,
Yes. Yeah, I
and
mean, it's really interesting because I'm sure working with a lot of doctors and working with nurses too,
yeah,
you're so driven towards caring about patients,
sure,
that in some respects, it takes the very rare doctor to have an understanding of healthcare as a business at all. They don't
right,
think of it as a business. They think
sure,
of it as a calling,
right,
and so sometimes you need those, I love these programs. I know Georgetown and George Washington University have these programs that are combination MD and MBA programs. And so
right.
they're basically trying to seed, you
Hmm.
know, this thing, because doctors and nurses, I'm sure you have great ideas all the time, because
Right,
you're doing the work,
sure.
and you think especially you, Harik, I'm
uh,
sure the you know you do a repeated process all the time, and you think there's got to be a better way to do this,
Right.
and I hope that can start thinking that way.
Uh-huh.
Well, look, at first I hope you're successful in your campaign,
Oh,
and
thank
that
you.
you can bring the kinds of policies that will reward and incentivize this, because I'm
Yes,
sure you
definitely.
understand how screwed up the incentives are
Right.
in healthcare, and we
Hmm.
desperately need to fix that. The thing I'm
Right.
so thrilled about American Gene Technologies is that pharmaceutical companies, the incentives right now
Hmm.
are to create lifelong treatment options,
Right.
because again, it's the razor and the blade
Right.
mentality. And if you can
Hmm.
sell somebody a new blade that gets dull really quickly,
Sure.
uh you know but how about we just all go back, instead of having these like plastic disposable razor blades that cost $5
Right.
every month, or we if we could just have a single expensive stainless steel blade that you never need to replace, you
Right.
know or if we can figure out how to give people who don't want facial hair,
Right.
if we can give them an option of lasering off the facial hair, then that might
Right.
even be a better option. And so
Right.
we need to change these incentives. The
Sure.
NIH shouldn't fund uh, Merck and Pfizer to create the next Viagra. They should
Uh-huh.
they should they should figure out what's causing erectile dysfunction,
Hmm.
because there are reports of you know old men
Right.
old men having children back in the 1700s, and
Hmm.
so you know there's part of modern living that
Right.
the chemicals involved in modern living that are causing these issues
Right.
for men. And we need to look more holistically. And of course, look, simple problems are hard for
Hmm.
Congress to solve, let alone
Right.
complex problems.
Hmm.
and there's, I like to tell people, a lot of people don't think about this, but there's a vast difference between complicated problems and
Mhm.
complex problems,
Right.
you know. And what I would tell people is it's complicated is what people use to describe a relationship that they're in
Mhm.
where they don't want to marry that individual.
Mm.
You know, complex
Mhm.
is is the reality of a healthy marriage. Let's just,
Mm.
let's just think of it that way.
That's interesting.
Every action that you take
Uh-huh.
as a healthy married person, I like to say to all of my friends who are in marriages that are having difficulties, I like to say, when I was an entrepreneur, the first time my company got acquired, our acquiring company uh, gave us what's called a zero balance bank account,
Mhm.
and it meant that they didn't have to manage a bank account for us and give us money in different chunks.
Mhm.
It just meant that we would write checks from that account and they would just get paid by mom and dad,
Mhm.
our parent company. And I said, that's what marriages are. I
Mm.
say that to my male friends. I say,
Mm.
here's my advice, and of course I'm an unmarried guy, so take this with a grain of salt. But I say, you have to have uh, a zero balance account approach, and that means that when you do something, your spouse is not going to like,
Mhm.
particularly if you're a man, you best get to the store and get her some flowers or get her some chocolate,
Mm.
because that is that's a requirement. You can't go negative, in the same way that we're not the federal government. We actually have to pay our bills. And so whether they're in your relationship or in real life. And so it's a very uh good way of thinking about these complex issues.
Right. So that's actually definitely one of the reasons why I am running for U.S. Congress. It's because I want to help healthcare
Yep.
industry to better help people suffering from various conditions. So, as you pointed out, these there are companies that can benefit from funding from NIH, and we should make it easier for, let's say, people in net impact at Georgetown University MBA program to start small businesses with funding from NIH or from federal sources that incentivize small businesses. So they can start a startup with a good idea. And I know that you want to encourage that too. So hopefully people watching will contact you at billmoher at gmail.com. And I know you're
Yep.
coming today to Falls Church Republican Committee meeting. So those who are interested can come and talk to you at 6 p.m. The meeting starts at 7. But I know there are people who are will watch this and want to talk to you. And that's the great thing. Yesterday I spoke at Fairfax County Republican Committee meeting as a candidate for U.S. Congress in Virginia's 8th District. Gave my 2 minute speech that's on my Twitter account. And there I met some people who would definitely want to get involved with what you are doing. Like, for example, a medical doctor who's been
Yes.
practicing for decades. And like you were pointing it out, there are doctors who kind of look at the small picture, of just helping one
Yes.
patient or two patients that he or she is directly working with. But what's great about your vision is that it can help millions of people around the world. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, and there's a way for doctors and nurses to get involved with that, and that's the
Of course.
exciting part,
Yeah,
And so,
you don't have to be, I know you particularly, I know you've been involved in clinical trials before, because that's, that's part and parcel to working in a university environment. Is the university is smart enough to get involved in those things, both, to help
Mhm.
the world, but also to help their bottom line.
Right.
But the beauty is that you're not limited
Mhm.
to being involved in clinical trials, either as a participant or like you as
Right.
a nurse practitioner
Mhm.
who can actually get involved, in issuing those treatments. You can
Mhm.
be involved if whether you're in healthcare or whether you're not, by finding a good company and voting with your dollars, putting those dollars to work,
Right.
doctors are, of American Gene Technologies investor class, of the
Mhm.
people who've bought shares in this private company. A
Mhm.
large number of them are physicians, because physicians get it when you tell them that this message,
Mhm.
it resonates with them, and
Right.
they know, they have both the university training and the practical experience to know exactly what this company's trying to do, and why, and what chance they have of being successful, which is, hopefully a very large chance, in the
Right.
case of this company.
Yeah, I was invited by a Medical Doctors Association of Northern Virginia that covers Arlington, Alexandria, Falls Church, Fairfax County, and Loudoun County, and Prince William County. And the doctors are interested in hearing from me about healthcare policies. And one of the things that I am very interested in is encouraging like net impact type companies that like Georgetown MBAs or George Washington University MBAs or George Mason MBAs. Yes, and
Johns
nationally too.
Hopkins is moving very,
Yeah.
very dramatically in
Hmm.
their MBA and their MD program,
Hmm.
are taking up residency in downtown DC, and
Right.
that's not a mistake. That's,
Right.
they didn't get wrong directions in the GPS. They're doing
Right.
that because they are out to change the world and change
Right.
healthcare, and they have this wonderful effect on our region where, you
Sure.
know, I remember when I moved to the DC area. I'm sure as a lot of your listeners will remember, America Online and these telecom companies were like the big driving force in this area, along with
Right.
government and the
Uh-huh.
government contractors. But I am so thrilled to see so much investment in biotechnology in this area,
Right. Yeah.
and we are becoming, for biotech, what Silicon Valley is for technology,
Oh, wow.
and I think, particularly Virginia, Maryland, and DC
Hmm.
together, are, a huge force for good in this industry and in this world, and
Right.
I am, as much as I love my career helping, you know banks and credit card companies
Right.
and retail companies
Hmm.
make more money. uh I love the idea of helping change the world, by being able to help individuals live
Right.
longer, live better
Sure.
quality lives, and
Right.
live more disease-free lives. And so,
Right. Quality of
you know,
life.
yes, yeah. I mean, this is part of our founding documents,
Sure.
was providing for the ability of the citizens to pursue happiness. And
Hmm.
uh, certainly you can't be happy without having your health first,
Right.
you know,
Oh, that's a good
and
point.
yeah, we need, we need legislators
Hmm.
hopefully like yourself,
Yes.
who
Yeah.
are very dedicated to this, and and see, uh they don't see the capitalist incentives. They don't
Exactly.
see profit as the enemy. When you were hearing the debate on the Affordable Care Act, it was, I spent a lot of time screaming at the TV that the profit motive isn't the problem in healthcare.
Mm.
You know, uh, it's the solution to the
Right.
problems in healthcare,
Right.
and we need policies that are not just bulk government grants to to hospitals and providers.
Right.
We need incentives in the right places,
Right.
and those incentives are in small scrappy startup companies
Right.
who have a mission to cure, not to treat a
Sure.
disease, because
Right.
uh an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Right.
Everyone's heard that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take either.
Right.
I'd rather, if I'm diseased, I'd rather have easy access to the cure
Mm-hmm.
than a slow and painful and expensive treatment process.
Right.
And the we need the NIH. We need the NIH to give out money,
Mm-hmm.
not as grants to already wealthy pharmaceutical companies.
Mm-hmm.
We need them to do things like change the incentives so that we have a competition with a prize.
Right.
The first person who can cure cancer
Mm-hmm.
gets $100 billion prize, and
Mm-hmm.
that would be the amount of cures that are going to come out of that
Right.
process.
Mm-hmm.
It's like space.
Mm-hmm.
We got a pen that writes upside down
Mm-hmm.
and Velcro, and we got Gantt and PERT charts, project
Mm-hmm.
management charts that all these businesses use.
Mm-hmm.
It's spent. All government spending isn't bad.
Right.
Government spending that's corporate welfare is bad,
Mm-hmm.
though. We have to call it out.
Mm-hmm.
The government incentives that that funded a company like Solyndra.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember that solar company,
Mm-hmm.
that's a bad way to spend taxpayers' money. Solyndra is bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
Solyndra's venture capital backers and their
Mm-hmm.
CEOs and their executives are all rich with taxpayer money.
Mm-hmm.
And strangely enough, that company's net carbon impact
Mm-hmm.
was not negative. It was significantly positive because they
Mm-hmm.
filled the courts with bankruptcy
Mm-hmm.
documents, and trees were cut down to do that.
Mm-hmm.
We need the right kind of incentives in government, and
Right.
in healthcare we need to not just incentivize doctors and nurses like yourself to treat people, but we
Mm-hmm.
need them to intervene early
Right.
to give them prevention,
Sure.
and to prevent them from getting
Mm-hmm.
the conditions that are going to cost both the healthcare system and the American taxpayer
Right.
a ton of money,
Mm-hmm.
and all of these incentives are
Mm-hmm.
misaligned today,
Right.
again, I hope candidates like you
Mm-hmm.
can take that message to Congress and fix that horribly broken system.
I definitely will. One of the things that I am looking forward to doing is reforming healthcare. And one of the ways that I plan to do that is exactly what you're saying, allowing small businesses with nurses, doctors, IT specialists like yourself, and entrepreneurs like yourself, and people who are interested in helping people, but also making money while doing that,
Right.
that they can start the small businesses with in a supportive environment. And I think that because a lot of U.S. Congress individuals are not really knowledgeable about what things are out there, such as net impact at Georgetown, what they want to do is kind of cutting edge. What you're doing is cutting edge as well in the area of healthcare informatics and healthcare application of the most recent technologies like viral vector technology. And so as someone who is very aware of what's going on in, let's say, net impact environments at Georgetown among the current MBA students and what they want to see in the next 10, 20 years, I'm very excited, and I'm looking forward to meeting Don Bayer on November 8th because I want to hold hands with entrepreneurs like you and go forward to pass bills into law that would encourage that kind of vision for America, because it will not only benefit individuals who are suffering from disease process, because as you say, being cured is better than living with the condition for 30, 40 years with very difficult treatments. So focusing on the cure is the better way to go, because they will save 30 years worth of co-pays, deductibles and premiums. Medications sometimes cost a lot, especially chemotherapeutic medications. And so they will save money.
Staying on that regime is tough too, like remembering to take your pills. Like, the older I get, the harder it is for me to remember. And I'm still a relatively young man. I am, I'm an ever optimistic, although, the condition of the world today, it's hard, it's easy to get down if you watch the messaging that happens on the news cycle. But, listening to the message, like on podcasts like yourself and other cutting edge stuff, the reality of the world. And this is a hard thing to stomach, because everyone thinks about the world going to pieces. They think about the environment going to pieces, but the quality of the entire world's life today is so much better than it was 10 years ago. It's so much better than it was 20 years ago. It's night and day different from how it was 100 years ago. The number of people who die in childbirth, nowadays, the reason, a lot of our founding fathers had many wives is that a significant portion of their wives died in childbirth. We don't have that condition today, and it's and thank God that we do not. And so I want to tell everyone that as a conservative, Ronald Reagan's message of morning in America, it can be morning in America again starting tomorrow, no matter who's in the White House. We have to all collectively decide that it's time to make a change, and change bad policies to good policies, clean up the messes that we've been making. Everything is possible.
That's true.
You've got to take that message of positivity out there, and take your shots at your opponent, Don Bayer, where you need to, and there are plenty of them to take. Believe me, I know. There's plenty of things he's getting wrong, but there are ways when you are elected, if that happens.
I'm looking forward to victory.
I want you to be a candidate that's going to reach across the aisle and drag Democrats to the right policies,
That's what I intend to do,
if necessary.
I'm looking forward to working with individuals who are involved in healthcare, like Lauren Underwood from Illinois. She's the first nurse elected to U.S. House of Representatives, and I'll be the first male nurse elected if I get elected, which I hope and look forward to happening. And so I would reach across to Lauren Underwood, who's liberal, and I disagree with a lot of her ideas on critical race theory and stuff like that. But there are certain positive things we can do in healthcare to advance healthcare. And
Right.
although she's not as capitalism friendly as I am, I think I can persuade her and other Democrats who are in healthcare to support a bill that would encourage small business entrepreneurship and people like Net Impact. Many of them actually are Democrats who are in Net Impact.
Absolutely. You know,
And
a lot of, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs, you know, I'm, you know, I was very shocked to find out how many entrepreneurs are liberal and Democrats, and it's not incompatible with a business mindset. You know, in fact, one of the reasons we're having so many problems is so much of Silicon Valley is, you know, are unable to divorce themselves from their political leanings, and they're
right,
taking their
limits the liberals.
companies down a wrong path that, you
Right.
know,
Like Disney.
for, you know, like censoring free speech, you know,
Sure.
which is, you know, look, you know, I want, you know, somebody causing vaccine hesitancy is not a reason to shut them up, like Dr. Robert Malone, who did
Right.
that on Seth Rogen's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Malone invented mRNA mRNA vaccine technology. He has the patents
Right.
on it.
Yeah,
You
he's
know,
conservative, right?
and he's an independent.
Right.
he would have said he's a classical liberal, a
Mm-hmm.
libertarian,
Mm-hmm.
you know, probably. But the reality is, you know, he's a doctor, you know, who understands how the body works, and, you know, he said, you know, as an example to you know, to everyone listening on this podcast, this is
Mm-hmm.
very important.
Right.
He's saying that early warning signs are showing up where a lot of adults are getting shingles, you know, who've
Oh.
had the COVID vaccine. And again,
Mm.
I'll very clearly, because I don't want to cause any controversy here. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a I have a bachelor's of science, but, you know, I'm not a scientist either. You know, but what Dr. Malone said on that podcast that got him in so much trouble is there are reports that people are getting increased episodes of latent retrovirus infections and or flare-ups, and so one of those is shingles. And so he recommended on that podcast that people who've had these mRNA vaccines who've had the vaccines and the boosters get a shingles vaccine, because you know, and anecdotally, my own mother came down with shingles, and
Oh,
she
sorry
had
to
the
hear
shingles
that.
vaccine 2 years ago.
Mm.
And you know, so these are not, you know, it's too
Mm.
early to have real scientific data,
Mm-hmm.
but he's doing exactly what you want doctors to do,
Right.
which is to say, hey, I want to raise a little bit of a flag.
Right.
He wasn't saying don't get the vaccine. We all
Mm.
know, you know, if you're at risk, if you have conditions that compromise your immunity, get the vaccine. Absolutely important. But they wanted to take him down and silence him
Mm.
because of causing vaccine hesitancy.
Mm.
And this is the guy that invented the technology. You
Right.
can't, you know, there's another word for it. It's called censoring his free speech.
Right.
That's what they were trying to do. And
Right.
you know, I want to, you know, the ACLU
Mm-hmm.
used to be an organization that was a Jewish-led organization that defended the rights of American Nazis
Mm.
to protest in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's not today's ACLU. Today's
Mm,
ACLU is for suspending people's free speech rights.
yes,
And the
certainly.
left has gone too far
Definitely.
in regulating speech, and it's too important an issue.
Right.
You know, I used to tell people, there are regulations on speech. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater,
Mm-hmm.
but uh, I would die on a hill that is allowing somebody to yell the N word in a crowded theater.
Mm-hmm.
As despicable a word as that is,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it is it's so important for our democracy to have people be able to express themselves,
Mm-hmm.
whether their opinions agree with yours, or
Right.
whether their opinions are different.
Mm-hmm.
And I want the same for my liberal friends. I want them to be able to argue with me and say horrific things that I don't
Mm-hmm.
agree with. To be able to take positions that I think are morally wrong, or I think are abhorrent, or all of these lofty words that they use to try to justify uh, their end goal of shutting me the hell up. And
Right. And I think you hit an important issue on the nail in terms of healthcare and helping people, because Dr. Robert Malone developed this mRNA technology. And if he raises red flags, there can be small businesses that pop up, let's say from net impactors at Georgetown, who want to fix this problem. And they
absolutely.
could focus on that. And if they patent something that could prevent shingles from developing from people who already have a vaccine, or get boosters in the future that may trigger something like that, then they can make millions of dollars with their patent, but also
Right.
help people who help people not to develop shingles from future vaccines or future boosters, because as you know, COVID-19 is here to stay. That's what most
Yes.
experts say, unfortunately. So that means, and today I was just reading some news articles about how COVID is mutating aggressively, which means they may come up with newer versions of the vaccine or newer versions of the boosters, which may also trigger shingles
Right.
if that issue is not fixed. And
Right.
with
Of
people
course.
trying to shut down Dr. Robert Malone, who raises these questions about side effects of the current existing COVID vaccines, then we're not going to have companies trying to fix this problem that actually exists, because
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
question is being shut down before any solution is begun to be found. And
Yes. Yeah. And
that is
you know,
problem, right?
and I have no, I have have gotten the vaccine. I've gotten the booster.
Mm-hmm.
I'm committed. I'm committed down this path because it was the right decision, the right personal decision for me. You know, I think the other thing that you need to talk about is, in general, I think more vaccines should be delivered with the mRNA technology,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm sure you're aware of this as a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
One of the questions you have to ask to people before you give them a vaccine
Mm-hmm.
is, are you allergic to eggs?
Yeah,
You
I've
know,
done that many times at George Washington University Hospital, where I
yes,
worked in the cardiac unit, step down unit as a nurse, a floor nurse,
yep.
and before giving COVID vaccine,
And
for example.
that for the poor people who are allergic to eggs,
Mm-hmm.
this acculturating vaccines in chicken eggs,
Mm-hmm.
you know, is a bad solution. It doesn't work for them.
Mm-hmm.
mRNA vaccines are uniformly better for them because they can get them. That's the
Mm-hmm.
difference. They don't have to worry about that. I think we should have mRNA vaccines for the seasonal flu, because as with the seasonal flu, sometimes they get it right and sometimes they don't get it right.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's effective and sometimes it's not. It just depends on what the variant is that year and what it's not just one variant for the flu. There are like 3 or 4 different variants, across this great big world that we're in. And that is it's critical to have every tool at our disposal. These mRNA vaccines, we know how quickly they can be created because we saw that with President Trump's process of opening up the FDA approval process. Think of how many people would have died were it not for that aggressive effort at reforming. Every COVID death that we've had in this country is a tragedy, but think of how many more we would have had we not had the vaccines available as lightning fast as they were.
Yeah, Operation Warp Speed by President Trump to develop the mRNA vaccines in record time. It definitely worked against the original virus. And right now there's a lot of variations. So I guess they're in the process of updating it. But unfortunately, President Joe Biden is not committed to updating the existing mRNA vaccine because they cost money. But it's an investment we need to make because virus is mutating constantly. And so far, over 1 million died. And we don't know what's going to happen in winter, in November, December, that's coming up, and January, February of 2023. The worst case scenario is viral mutations will be far worse than 2020 winter, 2021 winter. And then we're going to have far more die if we don't focus on developing the vaccine and upgrading it,
Exactly. And just to paint a clearer picture on this, like there are two aspects to every virus that are important for people to consider. One is the transmissibility.
Right.
So how infectious the virus is.
Right.
And that varies by variant. Everyone has heard of the Omicron variant, which was vastly more contagious than the original SARS-CoV-19, virus. It was so much more infectious, but so much more survivable. And so there's the transmissibility vector, and there is the impact vector. Whether or not it will make you very ill, or whether or not it is, or how survivable it is, And so we know the original SARS-CoV-19 was a very, very, very dangerous virus because it had a very high death rate, compared to a lot of other things. It's we won't know any of this stuff. The irony is that we won't know any of this stuff until 5 years later when we can look at the data. But the perverse incentives, again, the government perverse incentives are out there. You can tell your voters about how many people you were instructed to mark died of COVID. If you had an 85-year-old patient come into your hospital, and my guess is that significantly more of them died with COVID, but from an underlying medical condition or from old age. 100% of them you were incentivized to mark died of COVID. It put you probably, well, not as a nurse, you don't sign those paperwork, but it put the doctors at a horrible quandary where the economics of it forced them to check a box saying their cause of death was COVID, where for so many it wasn't, we won't have an idea about this for 5 or 10 years, maybe even
Right.
30 years. It may
Yeah, it
take that
takes
long.
time. Yeah, with
Yeah,
research, I think a lot of viewers out there who are not involved in research don't know how long medical research takes to verify info and confirm info. So right now we're
right,
going with temporary data that are functional data that we rely on because we have no choice because COVID is like 2 years old. But
right.
cancer's been around, for a long time. There's no
Yes,
end in sight, and HIV. Hopefully, you'll come up with the cure, and then we can end that. But COVID-19, we don't really have an idea what it's going to be like a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. We may still be living with it the way we're living with other viruses, and it may be infecting and killing hundreds of thousands or maybe even more every year. So that's one
yes,
of the concerns. And not only that, there's long COVID, which is people who had COVID who are no longer have COVID and no longer need targeted treatment for COVID, but they have these residue symptoms such as
yes,
lack of taste, lack of smell. Some people have brain fog that cause doctors and nurses to resign permanently from their positions, and they don't know how to fix it right now. And a
right.
bigger problem is that the currently existing diagnostic tests, which are CAT scan, PET, X-rays, and blood work, unfortunately, a lot of them are not detecting where the symptom is coming from. And that's the scary
Right.
thing about long COVID. I'm giving a research presentation at American Association of Nurse Practitioners in Orlando, Florida in June in their annual 2022 conference. And I'm giving it in long COVID. How can primary care providers manage patients who have long COVID, given the fact that many of the diagnostic measures that we have, lab work that we have, don't detect the problem? So some primary care providers are saying, doctors and nurse practitioners are saying, well, it's in their head. And some of them are actually writing referrals for counseling. But my argument is, I'm not saying there aren't patients who may have mental issues from suffering from COVID that could exist, but I think most of it is actually physical and real because they're experiencing the symptoms.
Yeah,
There is something there, but our technology hasn't caught up with detection the way it should. So one of the patients that I kind of worked with, she had uh, like constant bleeding, period, like menstrual flow
yes, yes.
for
Yep.
ever since she got COVID. She had that nonstop for months and months. So the primary care doctor referred her to a gynecologist who did all the tests, and everything came back negative. And then she came back to the primary care provider in Annandale, and she was like, "Oh, I'm still having this problem." And so, you know, uh, primary care providers are baffled. They're like, one, how do we treat patients who are suffering in this way? What medications do we prescribe? Because we don't have a
Right.
diagnosis. Because you know
Yes.
how it works in the
You-
medicine. You need diagnosis to prescribe things. And if you don't have a diagnosis except like a constant premenstrual flow, and they may
Yeah.
prescribe something that is related to that, but it may not be tackling the real issue. And we don't know what the real issue is because nothing is coming up on
Right.
the diagnostic test or
Well,
lab test.
this is where nurse practitioners and doctors like you or and doctors
Mhm.
can make a big difference because
Right.
you know the generic drugs that are out there,
Mhm.
for instance, with this particular patient,
Mhm.
did you consider prescribing a coagulating agent for her, like a blood coagulating agent, like
But you
the
know,
opposite of a blood thinner?
But there are problems with that too, right? Because if you prescribe like
Absolutely,
a blood coagulation agent, the risks are you have heart attack possibility,
yes,
stroke
yeah,
possibility, pulmonary embolism that could develop through
yes,
DVT, and they could all kill.
yeah.
They
No,
can
I
all
know
kill.
you,
So if you
but
prescribe those
for
without any due process, it'll be considered malpractice. So
yeah,
that's
see,
why these doctors and nurse practitioners are completely at a loss because they're like,
You
do we
need, we need,
prescribe
you
a
know, we
blood
need to
coagulation?
deregulate this. We need to deregulate this area because, you know, at the very least, what you should be able to do is you should be able to prescribe like a, you know, a very low dose of that medication to be able to to maybe stop the bleeding, you know, stop the symptomatic conditions
Right. So you're
of
trying
her
the
condition. Yeah.
symptoms.
And then you know, but to also reduce those very same risks that you referred to. You know, you may have to tell her, you know, to cut the lowest dose available pill in half, or
Right.
you know, in a quarter, you know, or
Right.
go to a formulary like you know, what are the custom pharmaceutical folks, like the
Right.
laboratories that can produce custom pills. You might be able to, you know, you should without worry of malpractice considerations have
Mhm.
some freedom, because otherwise this poor woman is going to be bleeding for the rest of her life. You know,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
what's her option? You know,
She's
there isn't a
young,
clinical study for it
Yeah.
right now,
Right.
and to be honest, there probably isn't a large enough population to even warrant one, which is sad. You know,
Well, there's actually quite a number of cases with this kind of. Some
yeah,
people
I've
have
heard of it. So
amenorrhea, or they have like some patients have stopping of the period. Some
yes,
patients have continuous blood flow. So reactions are different based on the patient. So we have these COVID patients developing this in their 20s and 30s, um, and there are documented articles kind of describing the reality. But the problem
yeah,
is we don't have the solution, and that's where I think you are important, and because we need to, number one, develop diagnostic tools that are next generation. We're still using diagnostic tests from the last generation.
right, right.
So you can't just keep relying on technology from last generation when we have,
Yeah,
uh,
you know,
like we have a new
everyone,
vaccine.
if for $99 you can get 23andMe,
Right.
why can't you get that as a means of selecting people
Hmm.
for a clinical trial, you know,
Hmm.
for a
Sure.
coagulation medication for
Yes.
this exact condition.
Yeah.
We need these, you know, these separate groups within government. We need
Right.
them to be collaborating with the entrepreneurs, you know,
Right.
and getting together is going to take somebody who understands this issue like
Right.
you know, in
That's why I'm running
Congress.
for Congress, because
Yes.
there are so many issues developing from just the COVID. Need to
Yeah.
develop new diagnostic tools, need to develop new lab type tests, and also clinical trials with existing, let's say, medications, for example.
Yep.
Uh, like you were saying with blood coagulation, we need clinical trials to see which are safe, which are not. We could gather together COVID-19 patients who have long COVID with that same problem, blood constantly flowing daily, and then we could try different medications out, on the clinical trial and see
Right.
what kind of medications we can prescribe for those who have specifically this condition with long COVID.
You know what you need to do
Yeah.
uh, is you need to grab somebody from that
Mhm.
organization at Georgetown of
Mhm.
entrepreneurs
Oh, net impact.
yeah,
Yeah.
you need to grab three people from Net Impact,
Okay.
you know, an MD, an MBA,
Uh-huh.
you know, and a nurse. And
Uh-huh.
you need to walk them over to Johnson and Johnson's J Labs in DC,
Okay.
and you need to say, this is where your company is going to be,
Right.
you know, and your company is called Let's Fix This Problem,
Right.
you know, and you know, and they don't even have to have the idea. You give them
Right.
the idea, because you know, you could be an advisor to that company, and
Right.
you could be the solution to this, you know, this patient's troubling issue. You could
Right.
be
And
the
then we're talking about
solution to her
thousands of
issue,
patients around the
and
world.
to thousands of people,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Get her fast tracked into a clinical trial
Hmm.
with this stuff. And you know, and
Right.
again, there's no incentives for Merck and Pfizer to do this sort of
Hmm.
stuff, because these drugs are already generic and they're already available, you know.
Right.
And like what you have to do is you have
Mm-hmm.
to have the willingness to put up with our antiquated FDA processes,
Mm,
you know, and the discipline,
mm,
uh, the hard strung discipline of an entrepreneur that's willing to put up with this stuff to
right.
bring this out to market, you know.
Right.
And you know, uh, you know, some of these things need to be venture philanthropic backed.
Right.
They
Right.
can't be venture backed because there's no
Mm.
money. There's no money in solving this woman's problem with a generic drug that's going to cost nothing.
Well,
You know.
but there can be modifications that
Yes,
could be
for
made
sure.
based on research as they come in, because they're coming in right now, because
Yes.
COVID is only 2 years old. And we don't exactly know what the problem is, because as we said, diagnostic tests are not showing anything. But if we, on the course during the clinical trial, as we learn more about these issues, and maybe someone creates a diagnostic test, patented, and we can use it, we may be able to come up with a more targeted drug, or maybe
Right.
even incorporate the vector technology that you're talking
Or
about
yep.
to fix this problem,
Or
because it may not
whatever.
be a traditional problem. It may not be the traditional medication that will fix this issue. Maybe it's a vector
Yeah.
technology that is needed to fix this issue. Then there's a lot of
I
money in it, millions and millions, maybe even
absolutely, you
billions.
know. And you know, but what I'm saying is that there's a very specific solution to this. Like
Mm.
you know, the Melinda Gates has her own foundation is focused on solving women's issues.
Right. So this would
I
be
think
up her
this
alley.
issue is a
Sure.
woman's this issue that your patient has is a woman's issue, and Melinda Gates should want to solve it with a generic. She should want to be able to give a bunch of money
Mm.
to pay people well to go through the FDA process with the generic, you know,
Right.
because you know, who knows which of there are probably, you know, 10 generic, you know, in the coagulating
Mm.
class of drugs.
Hmm.
You probably know exactly exactly
Mm.
which ones, because that's your area of expertise. But you know, it's better to focus on using existing treatments
Hmm.
and getting them approved and getting the data behind it, because that's the quickest way. You
Right.
know,
Immediate
it's
solution.
hard. It's
Right.
hard to do, you know, to do something that requires a trial, you know, with hundreds of thousands of or tens of
Right.
thousands of participants, and you know, and all of the time,
Right.
you know.
So you
And
could
this
do
woman,
short term and medium term, long term goals. So
right,
immediately, this woman needs something for her signs and symptoms.
right,
And we're generically calling it long COVID, but it's
yes.
probably more. There's a specific issue that we don't know what's going on yet.
No,
So we need to handle that.
yes, we
Yeah.
know it very specifically expresses itself through uh through a uh repetitive bleeding, incident
Right.
of bleeding. You know,
Right. So those are the
that's
signs and
yeah.
symptoms.
And again, we know this in men. In men, we know long COVID can present as myocarditis, you know, and especially in kids, it can present as myocarditis, and uh the impact of vaccinating your children, you know, should be made with very specifically with an understanding of the risks for myocarditis, which are,
Hmm.
you know, we only have like two published papers in credible journals, I think, at this point on that, and they're very initial. You know, we don't know how bad a problem this is, and I would hate for this to be another issue like we saw with you know, the Food and Drug Administration recommended that people switch from butter to margarine back in the day, you know,
Mm.
and margarine is a bar uh, of 100% trans fat,
Mm.
and you know what that does to heart disease because you're a
Right.
nurse. You know,
Mm.
you know what that did to heart disease. You know, the FDA caused an epidemic of heart disease in this country with that simple recommendation, which you know, had all the right spirit behind it, but didn't have solid science, and didn't have you know, and wound up to have very toxic results in a large population.
Right. So, I mean, it's important work that you're doing, and I hope that we can have more people learning from you and working with you. I would encourage all the watchers today to come out if you can at 6 p.m. to American Legion in Falls Church, where the Falls Church Republican Committee meeting will be. The meeting is at 7. We're going to be there at 6. You could come and talk to us, and you could talk to Mr. Bill Moher about maybe investing. If you want to make millions of dollars, he can show you the way. Or if you're a nurse or a doctor who want to get involved with healing people's lives, and that's something that you see as an important thing for you, you can do that while making money as well. And Mr. Moore is amazing. You know, I had a chance to talk at length at 2020 Easter celebration and book signing by Darrell Brooks. And I'm so glad that he agreed to come on the podcast and share with you this valuable information that can help you financially as individuals who want a piece of the American dream. You know, whichever country you're from, you know, we have 120 nations represented, and I'm meeting up with a businessman from Syria today who wants to get involved in the Republican Party. He's a Muslim, and I'm intending to speak at a mosque or several mosques in this area about my campaign and also the Republican Party. I'm trying to get more and more Muslims to come in to the Republican Party at Fairfax County, Arlington, Alexandria, and Falls Church. So this is an effort in that regard. So you know, I definitely will encourage him to come tonight to talk with you because I know he has interest in investing as well. And so so those of you out there, you know, anyone, even individuals who have thousands of dollars to invest, can come and ask questions of Mr. Bill Moher, and he can point you in the right direction, you know, and it's a good opportunity. So help you'll come out at 6 p.m. to American Legion in Falls Church. And you know, have an opportunity to meet Mr. Bill Moher, and I'll be there as well.
And the most important thing is that I'm going to be wearing the T-shirt from my number one choice for candidate for the for Congress in our district.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah,
really appreciate that.
Yep. I'm happy to give you my support and wish you the best of luck.
Great, thank you. So I hope you'll come out and see Mr. Bill Moher and me tonight at 6 p.m. at American Legion. Thank you for watching, and see you tonight.